All right, so managing individual investor portfolios. It's a theory reading. It's an easy reading. It's also one of those theories where we don't have to remember much. Okay, so from that perspective, it's relatively a smoother task for us. However, it's a big reading, and I plan to finish it in 3 hours, which means I'm going to be slightly faster than the normal speed. This is also the reading at level 3 where subjectivity comes in. Okay, so there are certain LOS which would come in at a later stage of the preparation or later stage in this particular reading, where there would be certain subjective LOS. Okay, so they'll give you a client scenario, and then based on what is the scenario of that client as of now, you'll have to decide what category that investor is fitting into. Okay, so some element of subjectivity, but we'll learn how to deal with this. So let us start. First point of discussion. It would help if you keep on scribbling along with me. All the important points will make you write. Effect of following items on individual investor risk tolerance, source of wealth, measure of wealth, and stage of life, and situational profiling. Okay, so let's try to build some intuition. Can you try to guess what would be the content of this particular point? Effect on the risk tolerance of the client based on source of wealth. Risk tolerance, is it ability or is it willingness? Risk tolerance. It's kind of both, isn't it? So if a client has higher level of source of wealth, his ability to take risk would be higher. Higher measure of wealth, sorry, in fact, we discussed the second point, that he has higher level of wealth, risk tolerance is higher. Source of wealth. What could be possible sources of wealth? Inheritance, yes, inheritance could be one. Or investments, yes. So inheritance is one source, investments is second source. What else? Jobs, that means employment, and business, absolutely. So typically those set of clients who have made wealth through business ventures, these are the kind of investors who are quite comfortable with the ability to take risk because they have taken risk multiple times in their lives. So these typically, those people who've generated wealth through business, these people will have a higher level of tolerance for wealth. Sorry, higher level of tolerance for risk. But imagine those category of investors who've inherited wealth, then their risk tolerance would be relatively lesser because their experience with risk is lesser. Are you following what I'm trying to say? So this is source of wealth. And what do you think would be the stage of life impact on risk tolerance? Sorry? Yes, if he's young, he can take risk more. But if he's not, of course, the risk tolerance would be relatively lesser. Now, one very important point in the second one, let us say there are two investors, investor A and investor B. Wealth of first investor is about $1 million. The second investor is about $1.2 million. Which one of these two would have higher level of risk tolerance or willingness, higher level of willingness to take risk? The one who's got higher? So the answer is depends. Okay. So it is not the absolute level of wealth that would determine how much risk is willing to take. It is the perceived level of wealth. Okay, based on which he would decide what is the amount of or level of risk he is willing to take. Is that making sense? For example, imagine investor A, he perceives that 1 million to be a really large amount. And in that case, his willingness to take risk would be higher. So that word perceived would make a significant difference. Are we fine with this? So let's read through the theory content. So most of the session today, my job would be limited to reading out all the theory parts for you. Source of wealth. The manner in which an investor acquired wealth is likely to affect investor's stance on risk. Wealth created through entrepreneurial activity was actively created and indicates investor knowledge and experience with risk-taking decision. Right? So this is the first point that you would be writing today. Say wealth created through entrepreneurial activity. Wealth created through entrepreneurial activity. And just say indicates knowledge and experience with risk-taking decisions. Anything you want to ask, Javed? It helps if you write in the class, because for some of you maybe this is the only time of the week when you're writing, and on the morning section we would be required to write. Okay, so please do write. Are we good to go ahead? Next point. Wealth acquired through inheritance or one-time windfalls, or wealth accumulated over a long period of secure employment, may indicate that investor has less familiarity with the risk. Okay, so just write down these 3 points. Inheritance, which is same as one-time windfall. So just write down inheritance, or wealth through secure employment, and then write down less familiarity with risk. Okay, now this is where there would be some level of subjectivity in the case study. So imagine a hypothetical scenario on the morning section vignette, which says that there's a client who has done business but who's really old. Okay, so then what is his level of risk-taking ability, right? And that's where you would have to take a call based on the entire profile, that in what category we should classify him. Should we go ahead? Measures of wealth. In general, a positive correlation exists between perception of portfolio size and the level of risk tolerance. Okay, so you would write this point. You would say positive correlation, okay, between perceived wealth and risk tolerance. Is it making sense? Let us go ahead then. If the portfolio generates a substantial amount of funds relative to those needed to support lifestyle activities, a higher level of risk may be tolerated. Okay, this point need not be written, but I'm sure this is fairly intuitive by itself. Are you understanding what this point means? Vipul, should we go ahead? Okay, stage of life. Inverse relationship between age and the risk tolerance. That means higher the age, lesser is the risk tolerance. So that's your point number 1. Inverse relationship between age and risk tolerance. I'm going to look at the second bullet point now. Younger investors can typically tolerate higher level of risk, and their portfolio should reflect aggressive growth characteristics. This you need not write. Investors in mid-career still have a long time horizon. They can tolerate risk, but their portfolios may become less aggressive and exhibit somewhat more conservative characteristics. And investors approaching retirement will probably exhibit a low risk tolerance. Moving further. First question.